City Council now in session. City Clerk will call the rolls.
Ms. Travis.
Here.
Mr. Chardonnay.
Here.
Mr. Colantuano. Mr. Donovan. Mr. Gallucci.
Here.
Mr. Lattiser.
Here.
Mr. Marola.
Here.
Mr. Solomon.
Present.
Ms. Bella Wilkinson.
Here.
7 present.
7 present. Councilman Marola, will you lead us in the pledge of the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
So, PCR 131-14, resolutions requesting former Councilman Cushman to present his pension figures and calculations to the City Council. Intergovernmental.
The committee recommends moving to the floor without a recommendation.
Okay. We need someone to move it. Councilman Marola,
I move favorable action.
do you have a second? Councilman Solomon. Okay. Councilman Marola.
Again, another issue that I think has been debated more in the press than it is among ourselves. Many months ago, before there was any elections, before there was any council people running or mayoral candidates running, I had a conversation with former Councilman Cushman about the process that we go through as council members. In particular, you know, every January or February, the auditors come. So the auditors come with a number for pensions. Then the healthcare auditors come, and we get a report on that. We get a report every so often from Standard & Poor's. We get a report every so often from the administration on line item expenditures. We get a report every so often regarding surpluses. Every year we vote on tax increases. And what the state has been doing as of late is trying to have projections and forecasts of where we've been and where we're going to. You know, the old saying is, if you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up someplace else. And that has never been provided to us. What we're expected to do is to take those numbers and come up with our own general idea of the health of the city. And I thought that it was helpful because the former Councilman Cushman has, in particular, a great knowledge of IT and is able to take those calculations into account for putting them in graphs and charts and looking at what the actuaries are saying we're going to need in the future and where we've been in the past to give us a good idea of where we should go in the future and our concerns in the future. It's a presentation. I'm not, and former Councilman Cushman isn't asking us to vote on anything. All it is informational, and I've been sitting here a long time, and no one person or one body has ever put that in charts and graphs for us to give us an idea of the total cost. Matter of fact, we spend tens of thousands of dollars on healthcare experts to do what Councilman Cushman is giving us in the form of a graph. This isn't being quote-unquote a financial expert. That's why I had asked the council auditor to check the numbers that he had pulled from different information that we were given, going back to, I believe it was 2004, over a 10-year period. And she pulled that information to say the number he pulled for here and put in his chart over here was accurate. And I think that it's important to get an idea, because we don't get that from the administration and we don't get that from any consultants, of where all the numbers are at once and how that affects our overall budget and where we're going in the future. Many times we've heard discussions on the floor with the administration about a 5-year plan. Can I see a show of hands from any council members who have been given projections from the administration regarding 5-year plans and how much we're going to be expending in the future and how much those costs are going to go up? We haven't. This gentleman just happened to take the time out to plug those numbers in to give us those projections. If we want to hear them, then I would suggest you vote no. And if we don't want to hear them, I'm sorry, if you want to hear them, I suggest you vote yes. And if you don't want to hear them, I suggest you vote no. I just thought it was helpful. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? One thing, I know I heard several people in the committee, and even Mr. Cushman himself, state that several groups came and spoke before us on other issues, whether it was the rights, for the equality, the guns. At that time, those groups were coming to speak to us before us because they were speaking on legislation that was before us. There's no legislation here. So that's the difference why people came out then to talk to us. I also remember hearing Councilman, I didn't take too many notes, but when he was doing, and I think he did a great presentation when he was in committee. I can't see why he couldn't do that in a 15-minute open mic. I think it would be very educational. But he said, I remember Councilman Gallucci questioning him on something, and it says here, former Councilman Cushman to present his pension figures. The former councilman stated there that it's not just pensions. He wanted to talk about the budget. So that's not even what this is about. So that was a concern that come up with me. So another thing, and I did quote in the paper that once you let someone come in with one issue, it could open the door for a lot of issues. I'm sure we've seen people that could talk about the airport or could be talking about someone else on another issue, and we could get a lot of that, and it just might open the door. I think he has a great presentation, and he probably thinks I don't read it, but he gave us stuff, and I still have it. I look at it, and yeah, a 10-year plan is good, but things change in 10 years too. There's a lot of things that happened before that it's different now. So I don't know if anybody wants to add to that, but Councilman Solomon.
Thank you. I think that the fact that our council auditor confirmed the accuracy of the numbers in the report, I myself was able to read the report and I understood the report. I don't think that it would hurt to listen to the presentation that was suggested by Councilman Marola's legislation, simply because no knowledge is too much. I mean, if we pick up something that we didn't pick up the first time, that's fine. But the fact that the report was analyzed by our council auditor and the accuracy was confirmed by the council auditor and the time was taken by this individual to put the report together, I think a little bit of information is good. There may be something that you or I overlooked in the report that can be highlighted. But I think that any presentation should be limited to the report, and I think that any presentation should have some sort of time element. I don't think you can have an open forum, as we see in this particular scenario on many occasions. Many of us are here from 5 o'clock to 11 o'clock and we don't even finish the council business by 11 o'clock, where we have to continue that business to the next meeting, and it has a domino effect. So if, in fact, the sponsor of this legislation feels that there may be additional factors, and I would think that that's the case, otherwise he wouldn't have proposed it, I have no objection to it other than time constraints, so it doesn't infringe on our other council business that we'll be addressing on that evening.
Council President?
Councilman Marola.
Councilman Galucci had suggested limiting it to 1 hour, and I don't have an objection.
1 hour including all the questions or just his presentation?
Just 1 hour for the presentation, if council members want to ask
I
questions.
think that's a long presentation. So, I mean, if somebody else can take that, I think it's a long presentation. I think you can get everything said in 15, 20 minutes, and then we take it from there. Councilman Lattisaw.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I also recognize the efforts and appreciate the efforts that Mr. Cushman has put into this report. And it's been stated, his numbers are accurate. The numbers are what they're supposed to be, according to his report. It's been stated that way by our council auditor and by the finance director, and I believe the city auditor. However, those numbers now need to have conclusion. Those numbers need to be brought out in conclusion. And what is the projections, and what does it mean? And where are we going? I would suggest, and it's a suggestion, that our council auditor, the financial director, and the city actuary take Mr. Cushman's numbers and do those conclusions, study those numbers, and bring us their own conclusions. And if we're not satisfied with those conclusions, or we need additional information based upon those conclusions, then we can reach out to RIPAC or someone such as that, which is a completely independent agency from anything with this city, and give us a conclusion and projection of those numbers. A suggestion.
Councilman Galucci.
I certainly respect Bob and his former positions on this council and as chair of the school committee and the information he has gathered. The issue and the problem I have is I certainly would like to hear it, and I think I was very strong in saying that I just like to hear it amongst the council people, as long as it's legitimate and that we are not violating any open meetings laws or things of that nature. I also like to see the whole council voting on this. The sense I get, we probably have a split council here. The suggestion that I made to the sponsor is maybe we should put a restriction on time, as we would with anyone else, or the other suggestion would be to hold it until December 8th so that we would have a full council offering their opinion. And again, if you were to ask me to where I would go with this and enforce the vote, I would probably abstain, and I'll tell you why I'm going to abstain. If it's going to be a tie vote, an abstention would put me on a prevailing side that we're able to bring this up again.
Councilwoman Villa Wilkinson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, as you did, I was paying close attention to what Bob Cushman had to say. He spoke about creating an evaluation system. He did that for CVS. He did that in some other type of leisure activity. He spoke about identifying trends, problems, creating models, as a matter of fact, and spoke about the value of using 10 years of data as opposed to 3 years. And although this resolution is talking about pensions, he went on to talk about the condition of the roads and the tax lien properties. We have an ordinance that has been in effect for about 3 years now. And that is so that when members of the general public want to address this esteemed body, they have the ability to do so with a 15-minute open mic. We have that twice a month. And in fact, although that was originally scheduled for the end of the meeting, we moved it to the very front of the meeting so that those individuals that did not have the staying power that some of us do, when we have those late night meetings before Councilman Solomon calls for Rule 21, they have the ability to speak early, especially those individuals that have families and would like to spend some time with their families. When we make the microphone available, if this body decides to go forward with Councilman Marola's resolution, then we do have to consider the fair and equitable treatment that goes after Bob Cushman takes the mic. And although he spoke about his use of IT, and in his own words, has a hobby crunching numbers, which is admirable that he wants to make us the beneficiaries of that hobby. The fact of the matter is there's a big difference when we're looking at pension numbers between someone who likes to have a hobby crunching numbers and someone who's a certified actuarial analyst. And here's some of my concerns. My concern is that if Bob takes the mic and he starts giving his presentation, it's not just for those of us who are here looking at the presentation, but certainly all of those individuals who tune in on the podcasts, who might not understand that Bob just has a hobby crunching numbers and he's doing the best that he can. And I would not want to create a panic. I would not want to create misinformation in the city of Warwick when we have certified actuaries that are paid, and same actuaries that the state of Rhode Island uses that are paid. Now, I've been on the city council for 4 years, and for many of the budget seasons that I've been here, Bob has handed me a sheet of paper with his charts and his analysis and a list of questions, and I listen to him respectfully because I feel that as elected officials that's what we should be doing. And in any of the cases that he has asked me about questions, I have reiterated those questions verbatim to the actuaries, and the actuaries just don't agree with the way the data has been manipulated. Now, I am not surprised at all that the base data that Bob used was correct, because that's city numbers. But the question comes how he is manipulating them forward. And when I say manipulate, I'm not talking about manipulation in some untoward or gray area. It's a term of art. It's as a statistician has numbers. You have those numbers, you have an ability to manipulate them and prove a point, or disprove a point, quite frankly. Now, I want to go on to what you had said, Council President. Again, going with the issue of fair and equitable treatment. We let Bob take the microphone. He means well. He puts a lot of time and hours in this hobby of his. And then the next person comes up, they have a hobby too. Their hobby is analyzing water. Their hobby is analyzing weather. Their hobby is analyzing fill in the blank. And so, when do we draw the line? The line is this. We have an ordinance. It's a very effective ordinance, although some of the folks on the City Council have asked me as the sponsor to eliminate that ordinance. We have an ordinance that says when someone in the general public has something they want to share with us, they have a 15-minute open mic. Now, Bob said that he had spoken at great length to Councilman Marola in preparation of the budgets. And frankly, I've worked with members of the general public in preparation of whether it's the budget or any of the ordinances or resolutions that I've created as well. So if Councilman Marola, without violating the rolling quorum, decides that he wants to have some of us come to his office or in a space in the city and talk to Bob about his numbers, I think that makes sense. But to put someone who in his own description said, I have a hobby crunching numbers, on the microphone and talking to this council about pensions, no, I can't support that. And to be honest, even if he was an actuary, then I would invite him, respectfully so, that when the bid comes out for the actuaries for the city of Warwick, that he put in a bid. And if he's found to be qualified, then he should come here. Why should we take free work from him? If he's qualified to give us an analysis of the pensions or spending or roads or whatever it happens to be, then let's pay the man. Thank you.
Councilman Lattiser.
Oh, yes, thank you, Madam President. With all due respect, I don't think Mr. Cushman is looking to manipulate the numbers or anything else. To my point earlier, because now that perception, if you will, perhaps is there, to go to my point earlier about council auditor, finance director, actuary, and if we're not satisfied with what those conclusions are, not manipulations, conclusions, then we can bring in RIPAC or someone else who is disconnected from the city, completely disconnected from the city. So I don't believe for 1 minute that Mr. Cushman or anyone else is looking to manipulate those numbers. Perhaps it was just the wrong choice of words.
No, it's not
I don't believe that for a minute. I believe the man's numbers are accurate, and I believe there's a conclusion to be drawn from those numbers. I just happen to have my own way of thinking on how we need to bring out and how we need to get to those conclusions. And I might add, by the way, I think this is a process that this city council should continue to do and do year after year. We do that in the private sector. We do it in our personal lives. We go to financial planners. We have CPAs that advise us on, well, you need to change this, you need to change that. Don't buy this, don't buy that. Get out of this, get into that. Because the long-term projection or the conclusions aren't what we anticipated them to be. So I think it is something that we should do our due diligence on and have that type of overview done every year.
Thank you. Yes, you want to...
Madam President, not a question. Again, just as a point of information, the term manipulating the numbers is a term of art. As I had said, it is not a disparaging comment. An actuary manipulates numbers in the same way that a statistician manipulates numbers. That's just a term of art, Councilman. That is in no way saying that he's trying to make the numbers do something that they're not. No. When you have someone who's a certified actuary, same as when you have someone who's a trained statistician, they have the baseline numbers, and then it is manipulated in such a way to prove the point. And that's what I'm saying. We have no way of knowing what his assumptions were. Please don't misunderstand me. Saying that manipulation of the numbers is not saying he's doing something untoward. It's just a term of art, sir. Thank you.
Councilman Marola.
Thank you, Council President. I think if you listen to the tape, Councilwoman Bella Wilkinson, you'll see that it was Mr. Cody that used the word hobby.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Councilman, for correcting that. I wrote it down.
Okay.
So his follower said hobby.
We have a of opinion.